And welcome back to Game Escape. Here today to talk about a video game prejudice that I've always had. A prejudice against the Pokemon series. And it's kind of strange. Pokemon came out in 1996. And at that time, I was just kind of getting ready to end my time in the 16-bit era and getting all excited to move on to the 32-bit systems and, of course, the N64. And so I kind of missed. I was a little bit older and kind of missed the whole Pokemon craze. And as such, I never really considered these series to be aimed at the kind of adult gamer that I thought I was at the time. And just never went back to it, never thought about it, kind of looked down upon the little kids in my family that I saw in school who were into Pokemon, and that was a mistake because recently, this summer, I picked up Pokemon Platinum at a garage sale for $10, which I thought was a pretty good deal, and I didn't even have any intention of playing it. I just wanted it because the price was right, and just thought I'd add it to my collection. And boy, was I pleasantly surprised. And it goes to show you how crazy prejudices can be. I didn't actually know that Pokemon was a role-playing game. I thought that it was kind of an equivalent to something like those little Tamagotchi things that kind of the younger kids had when I was in school, or that it was like a Nintendogs game where it was this idea that you were, raising your character and then you would kind of link up with other people in battle. I didn't realize that this was a fairly traditional top-down turn-based role-playing game. And I've always liked role-playing games that take the classic mechanics, those Final Fantasy, 1 through 7 battle mechanics, and kind of places them in a slightly different context. For example, I love the Persona series because it does just that. I mean, you level your character by creating social links in the game world and then going into these, whether it's Tartarus or the other little worlds to actually do battle and save characters and stuff like that. So, that was very ingenious, I thought. And actually, the Pokemon's approach to this traditional role-playing model is also pretty ingenious. It's a lot of fun to go out and find these creatures and battle with them and level them up and sort of strategically level certain characters so that you can conquer bosses or gym leaders, as they're called. I'm just learning all of this vocabulary now in other areas of the game, and it's just been a lot of fun, and I feel somewhat silly for not even knowing about this aspect of the game until now. Another thing that's really impressed me is the art style, just the clean, bright, classic, vibrant Nintendo graphics. I also thought that this was, in a certain sense, a kind of a cheap game. I assumed that it was just about sort of petting and feeding these characters. I had no idea that there was such a nicely developed game world to be found, and this is true not only of Platinum, which in which I've invested most of my gaming time of late, but I also went back and looked at some of the original Game Boy games and the Game Boy Advance games, but the Game Boy games in particular, reminded me of my all-time favorite handheld role-playing game, and that is Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening. And the art style really was so similar between that game and the Pokemon games on the Game Boy. And Platinum also kind of gives me that feel, this idea that you can invest so much time into this little handheld world. And there's just really so much to discover. I'm actually surprised, and this could just be due to the fact that I've never really played these games, but I had no idea that the game world was so big and that there were actually so many towns to discover. The music's great. It's so relaxing. I mean, it's perfectly paced. It's not a difficult game. I don't know. I've played about 12 hours or actually 15 hours, if count what I actually played today. And so I'm not, I don't know how far I am away from finishing the game. I'm trying not to use any tutorials or stuff like that, but it hasn't been challenging. If you sort of grind a little bit, level up your characters, and figure out which types are effective against other types. I haven't really gotten to a situation where I had to use a lot of potions or a lot of my characters died. So, but that's fine because it's been a nice way of relaxing at night. I've had a pretty busy time at work, and it's pretty fun just to kind of come home and relax and lose yourself in this world and kind of de-stress. It really does that well for me at this stage of my life. Maybe as a kid it would have been super exciting. I don't know if this is a series to which I'll go back and back to. I'm not sure that I'm going to play through the original Game Boy games or the Game Boy Advance games. I'm not sure I'm going to get another DS version of Pokemon. But I will look into the new ones, X and Y, that are coming out and see what they have to offer. Strangely, they seem to have a system where you pet and talk to and feed your Pokemon, which is, kind of the misconception that you had to do that in these games sort of created that prejudice. So that's not something I was really attracted to about X and Y, but having just a great time with Platinum. And I really just want to ask the question, to you guys, have there been series against which you've had a prejudice, whether it was unfounded or not? I mean, maybe there are some games that you had a prejudice against and you played and they were really terrible. But, talk about those. But also, have you been pleasantly surprised by a series that you thought you would hate? And that's certainly my experience with Pokemon. So I just wanted to share that and see what you guys had to say. And as always, I thank you for watching Game Escape, and I will see you again very soon.